She grabbed his belt. What happened next will transform your life. Discover this incredible truth. Lily sat in the back of the school auditorium, her heart racing as the principal droned on about school spirit and upcoming events. She had always been invisible in crowds, hiding behind the characters that drew attention effortlessly, like Jake, who was sitting 3 rows ahead, the focus of everyone's admiration. The whispers surrounding him were like a blanket that wrapped them in privilege, while Lily felt the weight of her family's struggles pressing down on her. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap, nails biting into her palms, as she glanced to the side at her mother's old cell phone, the battery nearly dying, just like their chances of a better life. With every boast from the stage about scholarships and achievements, the fog of suffocating inadequacy crept in closer. And then it happened. One moment changed everything. An unsuspecting classmate, Matt, stood awkwardly as he shared his thoughts on a project, fumbling over his words. Jake, in all his perfect glory, scoffed and shouted, "Shut up, loser." Laughter echoed throughout the room, a riot of mocking voices that stung Lily's ears. Something inside her snapped. An impulse took over, and before she knew it, she was on her feet, grabbing Jake's belt to stop him from walking away, the energy in the room switching from playful to incredulous. "What the hell, Lily?" Jake turned, his eyes wide with disbelief, while the murmurs around her morphed into something more sinister. Her breath caught, realization dawning like a wave crashing against the shore. Every eye in the auditorium fell on her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Panic set in, and a storm of conflicting emotions surged through her. Had she just made a fool of herself? Or had she finally done something brave? Anguish twisted her stomach as she felt the social fabric of her life unraveling. The whispers grew louder, her name slipping from lips wrapped in disbelief. Lily, the quiet girl, now the girl who dared to confront a king. Mrs. Thompson's gaze from the teacher's section burned into her, an unexpected flicker of approval hidden beneath the chaos. What did that mean? Did Lily have power? Could she wield it without it burning her? The thought of rejection and ridicule coiled tighter around her heart. With her reality shifting, dread began to seep in, conviction battling insecurity as she considered what this meant for her life. The impending disaster of her decision hummed in the air, frightening and exhilarating, marking a breaking point that could shape everything. Lily was at a precipice, the lines between courage and consequence blurring. Clutching her books against her chest, the pulse of the room echoed with unasked questions. Could she transform her future, or had she stirred a tempest beyond her control? With the town holding its collective breath, she stood suspended at the edge of discovery, grappling with the truth that awaited her just beyond this moment. The silence that followed her bold act gnawed at Lily like a persistent ache. She stood rooted to the spot, processing the weight of her actions. Jake's incredulity morphed into irritation, his brow furrowing as he regained his composure. For a split second, she experienced the intoxicating thrill of recognition, a surge of adrenaline that underscored her defiance against the tidal wave of laughter that moments prior had belittled a classmate. She had stepped onto the battlefield of social hierarchies, and for the first time in her life, she was in the crosshairs. "What are you gonna do next, huh?" Jake was now looming, his aura of dominance dimmed but not extinguished. "Apologize," the voice that emerged from her throat surprised even her. Instead of retreating into her shell, she found herself leaning into the confrontation, emboldened by the collective gaze that had shifted from Jake to her. Heat flushed her cheeks, propelling her conviction. Could this be the moment that turned the tide, the start of her metamorphosis from the invisible girl to someone with a voice? But the fear of backlash loomed large. What if this moment was just a flicker that would be snuffed out by the ensuing wave of cruelty? Desperate for validation, she sought Mrs. Thompson's gaze once more, hoping for a beacon of encouragement. To her surprise, the teacher's slight nod ignited something deep within her, a longing for acceptance she had never truly embraced, tethered to the belief that her worth was defined by grades and silenced at in that moment, a plan began to take form. Rather than shrink away, she would focus on turning this encounter into a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. The decision crystallized like ice, sharp and clear. She would confront not just Jake, but the entire narrative that had suffocated her for years. Each whisper and sidelong glance felt charged with opportunity. What if standing up became something more than an impulsive decision? What if she turned this newfound voice into a channel for others who felt equally overlooked? The idea took root, sprouting boldness in her heart. "Leave Matt alone," she continued, her voice steadying as she focused on her breathing. "He deserves respect, just like everyone else in this room." The words echoed off the walls and landed with a finality that reverberated through her like a gentle lightning strike. Jake's smirk faltered briefly as shock washed over the faces around them. It was a moment suspended in time. The auditorium was now a survival ground where Lily confronted her fear of judgment, visible and unchanged. She was unveiling a version of herself she had buried under years of submission and neglect. As the seconds ticked by, adrenaline mingled with exhilaration, erasing the remnants of her former self. She spotted a shifting expression among her classmates. Some faces appeared to beam with newfound admiration, while others viewed her with resentment. Each reaction surged through her, a reminder that this journey also entailed consequences, but the loudest voice was her own, proclaiming that she no longer wished to hide. The scene tipped slightly in her favor, granting the courage to pursue this thread of transformation. She could hone this bravery, refine it into something meaningful. Lily knew now it wasn't merely about standing tall against Jake, but developing her own sense of purpose. Each step toward that purpose felt like a blade cutting through doubt. She shifted her gaze back toward the teacher, and it solidified her resolve. There was potential growth in learning to navigate this newfound identity, but it would require more than just resistance. It would demand a confrontation of her own insecurities. The applause that erupted from certain corners of the auditorium struck her with both surprise and determination. As she felt the attention lift her, she understood that this was only the beginning of a much greater endeavor, a continuous fight to wield her own strength. But just as she began to process the power she had summoned, a familiar voice broke through the elation. Jake's laughter trailed her like a shadow, loud and scoffing. "Good luck with your little crusade, loser," he sneered. And as those words sank in, she realized she hadn't just sparked a revolution within herself. She'd opened the door for a battle that was far from over, one that would require every ounce of bravery she had discovered. With her heart racing anew, Lily understood that the true challenge lay ahead, forcing her to consider, would she continue to seek her place in this unwelcome narrative, or break free entirely? The clamor of applause faded into an unnerving echo as Lily's heart thudded in her chest. Did she really just stand up to Jake? The realization struck her with the weight of a freight train. The aftermath of her brave declaration pulsed through her veins like a mixture of adrenaline and dread. It occurred to her that the lion's share of her anxiety stemmed not from the confrontation itself, but from the uncertainty that followed. What did this newfound courage mean for her? She took a quick glance around the auditorium. Faces still turned towards her, a mixture of awe and disbelief flickering in their eyes. Among them, she noted a few nods in support but also scowls from those who would rather see her silenced. Doubt splintered inside her. Was this moment truly one of empowerment, or merely a prelude to a more profound pain? The realization that burgeoning strength could also attract hostility began to settle in. Fueled by determination, she grasped the threads of her earlier impulsiveness and sought to weave them into something stronger, a tapestry of resilience, perhaps. Leaving the auditorium, however, she was met by Jake's thorny echo of laughter that clawed at her confidence. "Crusade, huh? You must be deluded." Lily wanted to turn and snap back, to unleash the torrent of words swirling in her mind. Instead, she swallowed them down, opting for contemplation. It was clear Jake could and would retaliate. His contempt was palpable and threatened to undermine her fragile resolve. As she walked through the halls, the questions gnawed at her: was it the right choice? Did standing up simply translate to becoming more of a target for ridicule? Reflecting on Matt, the student she had spoken up for, a warm wave of conviction rolled through her. If she was willing to stand for someone else, then perhaps there was something more fundamentally encapsulating her journey. It was about more than just her. It was about voicing the collective frustration of those who had endured the slings and arrows of bullying. Her mind shifted to envisioning a pathway forged not through revenge or social confrontation but through the power of leadership. If she could harness this fire within, she could create a ripple effect encouraging others to stand against the tide of small-mindedness. Outside, the world was thick with the rhythm of busy lives, but inside her, a storm brewed. She was teetering on the brink of a personal revolution. Would that mean taking on a role as a leader, championing underdogs and confronting bullies head-on? Confronting her fears meant not only facing Jake but also the potential backlash that would follow. Therefore, she declared to herself in a quiet moment of resolve, she would need a plan. If she could learn the art of rhetoric, of leading a conversation rather than merely guiding one through confrontation, she could be invincible. With palpable determination, she made her way home. Each step reverberated with a single thought: she needed to find ways to develop her voice into something sustainable. Research, practice, connection, these would become her tools. As she began charting the landscape of her possibilities, the vulnerability of her position struck her again. What would the cost be to forge ahead? Would she sacrifice parts of herself to pursue this path? The stakes felt high and the weight of choice heavier than before. Yet, as she opened her journal that night, a blank canvas for her emerging identity, she felt anticipation spark within her. Each blank page was an invitation to document not just her plans but herself. But just as she began writing, a notification lit up her phone screen. It was a message from Matt, the one she had defended. The gripping curiosity of what he had to say sent a ripple of urgency through her. Would he reach out to thank her or perhaps encourage her further? Or would he share fears she hadn't considered? As she readied herself to dive into that unknown, her heart quickened. With every choice, she was preparing to face the unexpected. Would this new connection become a catalyst for the change she sought, or would it pull her deeper into uncertainty? Heart racing, Lily opened Matt's message with a mixture of eagerness and trepidation. The words on the screen felt both light and heavy, a precarious balance of hope and fear. Lily, I wanted to thank you for what you did today. It means more than you know. A wave of warmth enveloped her, but as she scrolled down, she noticed his thoughtful hesitation. I worry. What if this only makes things worse for you? A sharp pang of vulnerability struck her. For every ounce of empowerment she felt standing up for Matt, there was an equal measure of dread festering in the shadows. Would her actions ignite a storm of aggression not just against herself, but also against him? Clearly, he was thinking what she had tried to silence in her own mind. Taking a deep breath, she began to formulate a response that would reassure him while standing firm in her resolve. I know it's risky, but I believe it's worth it. We can't let fear control us, right? Typing the words, she felt a stirring swell of determination. It was not just about her, it was about effecting change, even in the smallest ripple. After hitting send, fatigue washed over her, pressing down like an anchor. She closed her laptop and took a moment to gather her thoughts. The storm brewing within had begun to take on a more organized form, but was it strong enough to withstand the forces aligned against her? She needed to fortify her defenses. Her mind drifted to ideas of becoming a better communicator, one who could use words as shields and swords. What if she searched for resources beyond her school library? Online courses, books on leadership and public speaking, speechwriting workshops, endless avenues stretched before her as she pictured a brighter path threading through the murky uncertainty she felt. The next day at school, determination propelled her forward. A mantra started to form in her head: be the change, not the fear. She walked with newfound purpose, well aware of the gazes that followed her, some curious, some judgmental. Jake's laughter still echoed in her mind. It would not quiet that easily. During lunch, she spotted Matt sitting alone, a tray of untouched food in front of him. With a flicker of resolve, she approached. "Mind if I join you?" Surprised, he nodded, and as she sat, she sensed their conversation was a pivotal moment not just for herself, but for them both. It was time to reinforce their alliance, to build something greater than individual courage. They shared a tentative conversation, discussing experiences of bullying like two ships navigating stormy waters. As they spoke, Lily realized the responsibility she felt resting on her shoulders. She was on the threshold of something significant, an awakening of sorts. But awakening to what? That question loomed large, demanding answers. Later that week, armed with her new knowledge and sharpened voice, she decided to approach the student council about hosting discussions around bullying. If she could get allies in her corner, it could become a safe haven for all who felt marginalized. As she stood outside the council room, anxiety twisted in her stomach like a coiled snake. What if they dismissed her? What if they laughed? Taking a deep breath, she shook off the doubts. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. A message from Matt. "Are you okay? I've been thinking about what you said, and I want to help. Let us do this together." The weight of his solidarity made her senses sharpen. This was her moment, and she couldn't let it slip away. With clarity blooming in her mind, she pushed through the door. Inside, she faced the council, ready to present not just her ideas, but the new version of herself evolving by the second. But just before she spoke, Jake walked in. The tension shifted palpably, and all eyes fell on him. What had started as a promise of courage now teetered dangerously into confrontation. Could she go through with it, knowing the potential fallout? The moment of truth hung thick in the air, demanding the next step. Would this be the time she solidified her stance, or the moment she faltered? Lily's heart thudded in her chest, an echoing rhythm that drowned out the chatter around her. Jake's presence was electric, a palpable force that threatened to short-circuit her resolve. Time seemed suspended as tension grasped the room tightly, as if everyone held their breath, waiting, anticipating. She felt her mouth go dry, the words she had rehearsed slipping away like grains of sand from her grasp. The faces of her peers morphed into a blend of encouragement and skepticism, and amid it all, Jake's smirk taunted her, urging her to remember her fears. She clenched her fists, feeling the strength in her fingers, the culmination of her newfound determination, and glanced at Matt. His expression conveyed support, a quiet assurance that this was more significant than a mere presentation. "Actually," she began, her voice steadier than her nerves suggested. "I think it's crucial we talk about how bullying affects us, how it affects everyone, really." A ripple of murmurs surged through the room. Encouragement mingled with doubt, yet the air felt charged with potential. Jake leaned back, arms crossed, a challenge flaring in his eyes. "So, you want to talk about bullying?" He sneered. "Like that's going to change anything here? You think a little chit-chat is gonna fix what goes on?" His words struck like a blow, but something in Lily stirred. She was done being silenced. "Talking is just the beginning," she shot back, her voice gaining strength with each syllable. "We've all been afraid, haven't we? Feeling alone, feeling powerless. If we can share our experiences, maybe we can transform that fear into something else, something powerful." The words hung in the space between them, an invitation as much as a challenge. Jake's expression shifted, uncertainty flashing through him before he masked it with bravado. "Sure, why don't we just talk it out and sing Kumbaya? That'll fix everything." "Actually, it's not about singing," she pressed, her heartbeat surging in her ears. "It's about showing that we're united against what's wrong. Together, we can make this a better place." The room held its breath again, eyes flicking between Jake and Lily. For every beat of her heart, she sensed the weight of their expectations resting on her shoulders. This wasn't just about her moment, it was a chance to reshape an entire narrative. "Well, count me out," Jake scoffed, turning to leave. But then unexpectedly Matt spoke up. "Wait. If Lily believes this is important, then I do too. We should at least listen." The shifting tides of support surged behind her. Conversations broke out, timid but growing louder, as others chimed in, swayed by Matt's boldness. Had they been waiting for just this moment, this slight nudge into shared uncertainty? Maybe it starts with us being honest, Matt continued. If we can confront this together, it won't just be one person bearing the weight. It'll be all of us. Each word from Matt was like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Encouragement fueled her determination, strengthening her resolve. Questions flitted through her mind as she realized the depth of this moment. What they were building wasn't just about her, it was about confronting fears together. While Jake rolled his eyes, a few others nodded. Her pulse steadied, pushing her forward. So, what do we want to discuss? She challenged, as if daring everyone to participate. What needs to change? With every response from her peers, she felt the growing surge of a collective voice rising against apathy. The weight of her intentions and efforts began transforming into a ripple that could shift the tide. It was invigorating and terrifying all at once. She realized this was the tipping point she had been seeking, and with every voice that joined in, she felt her empowerment deepen, but as the conversation sparked and momentum built, the door swung open once more, and in walked someone unexpected, the principal. The somber expression on their face communicated urgency, and Lily immediately felt a surge of anxiety. Had they been overheard? Would the very thing she had feared most, consequences for her courage, come crashing down upon them? The moment simmered, poised on the edge of revelation, leaving her wondering if this newfound alliance could withstand the scrutiny of authority. What would happen now? Would this moment be one of growth or a moment lost to fear again? The principal's presence cut through the room like a sharp knife, silencing the burgeoning discussion with an intensity that made Lily's stomach knot. She held her breath, sensing the challenge inherent in the air now. The implications of what they were attempting felt fragile, as if any misstep could shatter the very momentum they'd built. Lily, the principal began, their tone stern yet laden with curiosity, I need to speak with you immediately. The words carried a mix of authority and concern that sent a jolt of fear coursing through her veins. As tension enveloped her, a thought flickered in Lily's mind, was this the end of her moment? Had she invoked an unnecessary risk that could jeopardize not just her but also those who had stood beside her? Matt's eyes stayed fixed on her, unwavering, yet uncertainty seeped into the corners of his expression. Without hesitation, she stood, compelled by the urgency to protect what they had begun. Can I ask for a moment? She managed to voice, feeling the pulsating energy within the room shift. The principal frowned slightly but nodded. Go ahead, they replied, less an invitation than a command. What if we're right? Lily implored. What if starting this conversation truly means something? I know it sounds naive, but Lily, this isn't discussion, it's a request for your attention. The principal's voice was steady, but Lily could see a glint of understanding behind their eyes. They had been a student once, too, maybe they understood her struggle. This wasn't just about immediate consequences, it was about everything she felt beneath that surface, the frustration of being silenced, the need to be heard, and the desire for change. Summoning her courage, she locked eyes with the principal. I'm sorry, but this matters. The bullying, it hurts people more than you can imagine. I just want to shed light on it, to make us willing to talk about the uncomfortable truths we keep shrugging off. The principal paused, weighing her words. You're braver than I often see in this school, Lily. But be careful with what you wish for. Their gaze shifted briefly to her classmates, many of whom bore expressions of apprehension. If you choose to lead this discussion, it will test your strength beyond what you might expect. Her heart thundered in response to their warning, the weight of the moment began pressing down heavily. Was she ready for the challenge of delving deeper, risking possible isolation or backlash? Yet, she felt something shift inside her, an ember of resolve igniting into flame. I am ready, she insisted, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. The principal nodded, a slight approval hinting in their eyes. All right then. We will talk, but under my supervision. With a faint exhale, relief flooded through her even as trepidation lingered. Thank you, she replied, feeling the knot in her throat loosen just a little. As she returned to the group, her peers turned expectantly. The air crackled with uncertainty, yet a current of hope shimmered just below the surface. They want to talk, she announced, and a flicker of determination sparked among them again, but the moment of reprieve was quickly shadowed. Jake had lingered outside the door, keen on not letting the opportunity pass. He stepped into the light, a sardonic smile threading his lips. What's this? A little show of unity? I melted whenever I heard the word change. His sarcasm hit Lily like a slap, but instead of shrinking back, she felt the heat of a new resolve. You can mock us, Jake, but we're just getting started. You have no idea what we're capable of. A moment of silence passed, as if her words had turned the tide. The room shifted, and she sensed a collective heartbeat thrumming stronger in rebellion against the negativity he represented. She had felt their fears melt away, making space for courage. Would they truly unite against Jake's ridicule and the bullying that loomed like a dark cloud? But as the challenge grew, deeper conflicts loomed on the horizon. Questions of her own commitment surfaced. Was she prepared to stake everything on this fragile alliance against insurmountable pressure? With resolve rising in tandem with doubt, the conversation ahead would not be easy. Yet Lily knew change was inevitable, whether through harmony or discord. In that moment, a realization seized her: she was on the precipice of action. What began as her nascent voice would either shape their narrative or shatter it completely. Could she endure the backlash if her intentions were met with fierce resistance? Would their commitment hold through adversity? As Jake's smirk morphed into a sneer, only one truth remained clear: the time had come to face not only her adversaries but also the specters of her own doubt and fear. Lily barely had time to absorb the gravity of her new role before Jake's derision settled over her like a thick fog. The laughter of onlookers felt distant, their eyes flitting back and forth between her and him, waiting for a response. She could see it in their faces: hope wrestling with fear, uncertainty clinging to them like a shadow. Determined to reshape the narrative surrounding her, she took a deep breath, steeling herself against Jake's mockery. If you think people don't care about each other, you're wrong. The retort came unfiltered, a truth she hadn't just prepared but one she had come to embrace. Change doesn't happen in silence. You might think you're untouchable, but those you mock have the power to rise above it. Jake's grin faltered, if only for a moment, and she felt the weight of 100 eyes pressing in around them. A small victory, but one that swelled her heart with confidence. She sensed the hope rekindling within her peers, their gazes turning more resolute with each word she uttered. With every ounce of her will, she initiated a plan, one she barely had time to sketch as it unfolded before her. Lead discussions. Create a safe space. Write down experiences. Give a voice to those fractured by silence. The ideas flashed through her mind, blurring in rapid succession, but clarity emerged as she focused on each aspect. Let us meet tomorrow, Lily announced, her voice ringing with renewed conviction. We'll share our stories. Together we can figure out what to do next. Glances exchanged among her classmates reflected a burgeoning sense of unity: if not today then tomorrow. The mantra urged her to push forward. However, Lily grappled with the knowledge that clear-cut solutions rarely existed. What if the meeting devolved into chaos? What if her own fears struck her down when faced with true opposition? The nagging doubts crept back in, but the resolve growing within her pushed back harder. This was her moment, not only for her but for those who felt invisible, those who had been stomped on by the very system meant to protect them. After dismissing her peers, she lingered, collecting her thoughts as the weight of their aspirations pressed down on her. The vast auditorium now echoed with silence, and she could almost hear the lingering whispers of self-doubt circling her. What would happen when the group gathered? Would she falter under the weight of responsibility? In this solitude transformed by anticipation, the principal approached her again, their brow furrowed with a mix of concern and cautious optimism. You've chosen a path that demands more than you can imagine, Lily. Are you ready to face the consequences, whatever they may be? Her body tensed, grappling with the idea that her choices might open a Pandora's box. Yet turning back was not an option. I want to flee into the shadows. I refuse to let fear dictate my choices. As the principal regarded her with an almost paternal warmth, she realized this was no longer about just confronting Jake or the bullying. It was about embodying her growth, challenging her fears, standing firm in the face of adversity. Good, the principal said, their voice steadying her. It won't be easy, but you're already stronger than you think. Just remember that the greatest victories often come from the battles we least expect. As she turned to leave, a sense of purpose began to coalesce. With each step toward home, she envisioned the upcoming meeting, the challenges, the confrontation, the raw honesty she aimed to foster. There was so much to lose, yet so much more to gain. Little did she know, lurking beneath the surface was unexpected opposition, subtler than Jake's overt skepticism but all the more insidious. A voice from within her mind whispered uncertainties and conjured images of rejection and failure. But there was another part, a brighter, fiercer part that urged her on. This clash between her potential and her fears was the crux of her evolution. As she reached her doorway, she felt the tsunami of emotion wash over her: fear, excitement, purpose. The battle lines were drawn not just with Jake but within herself. Could she indeed summon the courage to face those demons? Behind the excitement, a new fear loomed larger than before. The very support she aimed to gather could turn against her when confronted with their truths. Would they trust her to lead, or would their doubt extinguish the flame she was trying so hard to ignite? The uncertainty pushed and pulled at her, but deep down, she knew she had to press forward. Her moment was coming, and with it, a choice, to forge ahead unrelenting or to retreat, letting fear define her. Tomorrow would unveil not just the stories of others but the uncharted territories of her own potential. The following morning arrived with an unsettling clarity, the sun casting strips of golden light through her bedroom window. Lily sat up, tangled in the sheets of her bed, nerves bubbling to the surface as she replayed the previous day's encounter with Jake. The laughter still echoed, as if it were the soundtrack of her anxiety. She couldn't shake off that laugh, nor the weight of all those eyes watching her struggle. Her reflected image in the mirror was both an ally and a foe. There she was, Lily, the girl whose vision had coalesced into dreams of leadership, ready to guide others through trembling narratives. But self-doubt raised its head, questioning her readiness. What if her voice cracked? What if the warmth of their trust turned to cold skepticism? Instead of letting these thoughts spiral further, she flicked the mental switch, redirecting her energy into preparation. She rummaged through old notebooks, combing through written reflections from the past months. Each word felt like a step along a path she had yet to fully navigate. While searching for a glimmer of inspiration, she found a passage she had penned during a particularly challenging week: fear is the crossroads of growth. It's where the stories begin. That single line ignited a flicker of determination. She rushed to jot down her thoughts, organizing her ideas into a makeshift outline for the meeting. Sharing those personal narratives would be a bridge to unify their experiences, anchoring them in vulnerability. Yet, like a dark cloud, the fear pinned her down. What if their stories evoked emotions that chaos awakened? Would she have the strength to guide them through? Today, however, was not just about her. She had to focus on the collective strength they could harness together. While assembling her notes, she remembered the principal's words: battles often led to the greatest victories. Was she ready to become a warrior for them? The clock ticked louder as the hours dwindled to minutes, and she dressed, each article of clothing wrapping her in a protective layer against her uncertainties. She chose a soft blue cardigan, a color that always made her feel secure. The fabric enveloped her like an armor, reminding her of the calm she sought to project. As she approached the meeting space, her heart raced, an orchestra of emotions colliding within her. She opened the door to a gathering of anxious faces, each reflecting their own burdens and hopes. The momentary silence that met her arrival felt tangible, buzzing with expectation. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her pulse quickening. "I know each of us carries a story that deserves to be heard. Today, let us create a space where we can share." What felt like an eternity of hesitation lingered in the air until someone finally spoke up, a soft voice trembling but sincere. "I'm scared," they admitted, and the vulnerability wove a thread that connected each individual in the room. As others chimed in, voicing their fears, each emerging story carved gaps in the walls Lily had imagined. They were willing to share, to confront the demons that had haunted them for too long. Each tale unraveled a piece of collective pain, and yet, amid the rawness, Lily began to realize that this moment extended beyond mere sharing. It was about forging an alliance built on honesty and courage. But as the meeting progressed, shadows crept in, unspoken truths hung heavy in the air, waiting for their time to speak. How far could she lead them? When would the fragile thread of trust fray, and who would be the one to challenge her guidance? Doubts bubbled again, deeper this time, like a lurking monster that refused to be ignored. The dialogue soon transformed into an exploration of potential solutions, yet that nagging question remained: would a member of the group step forward to question her leadership? The room pulsated with energy and resentment alike. As they began brainstorming, a voice broke through, heavy with skepticism. "What makes you think you can lead us through this?" The room stilled, and all eyes turned to Lily, sizing her up. With a mixture of curiosity and containment. She felt the weight of their scrutiny and the threads of her own confidence fraying. In this moment, she became the embodiment of her journey. Everything she had prepared for was hanging by a thread. Would she face this confrontation head-on or unravel beneath the pressure? The moment was hers to seize, but the unpredictable nature of trust loomed heavily. "Let us find out together," she replied, her voice steadying as conviction surged within her. "We're in this as a team. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to lead us through it." The meeting held its breath. Lily's next move could either shatter the connections they were beginning to forge or solidify her newfound role. In her pursuit of embracing vulnerability, a critical showdown lay before her, one not only against skepticism but against the very doubt that had plagued her. Today was not just about sharing stories, it was about laying the groundwork for a revolution of the spirit, one that could crack her open in both fear and strength. And deep within her heart, she wondered, whose voice would ultimately define the narrative of this transformative journey? The silence stretched on, a taut string vibrating between anxiety and anticipation. Lily felt that moment hang in the air like the heavy clouds of an impending storm. Words settled into her throat as she searched for the right response, aware that her next statement could either inspire unity or shatter the fragile trust they were beginning to build. "Let us take a moment," she suggested, striving for calm amidst the turmoil. "We've all felt fear, but today, let us lean into it. I'll share first, and maybe that will help." She took a deep breath, tracing back to her own memories of doubt. The words came tumbling out, candid reflections of her struggles, her failures, and the small victories she had clung to. Each syllable dispelled the tension, inviting vulnerability into the space. As she spoke, something shifted. The room seemed to collectively exhale, walls of skepticism lowering with every shared anecdote. One by one, the participants followed suit, sharing not just their fears but also moments when they had felt unseen or undervalued. Each story added a layer of understanding that wove them tighter in communal empathy, yet, despite the growing camaraderie, Lily's internal conflict raged. She was the facilitator, but could she also be someone they genuinely looked to for guidance? The insecurity lurked ever nearer, questioning the authenticity of her role. Deep down, did she not just replicate the patterns of leadership she had long admired, or could she forge her unique path shaped by her experiences and resilience? "Lily," another voice broke into her reverie, this time softer but no less piercing. "How do we trust that you can help us? It's easy to talk about fear, but doing something about it feels impossible." There it was. The challenge she feared. Her heart thudded painfully. This was her moment, a crossroads in her narrative. "It's true," she acknowledged, looking into the eyes of everyone around her. "I may not have walked each of your journeys, but I am here to walk with you from this point forward. Leadership isn't about having all the answers, it's about fostering an environment where we can tackle uncertainties together." Was that enough? Confidence waltzed with doubt as she gauged their reactions. She could see the uncertainty sitting heavily on their brows, but beneath that, flickers of trust began to ignite. Hope was delicate, but possible. As discussions continued, the interactive nature of their exchange took a life of its own. Ideas bold and fragile spurred one another into existence. Lily facilitated, navigating discussions while confronting her doubts head-on. Every pointed question from the group, every challenge to her authority chipped away at what she believed to be her weakest spots. With every moment, Lily discovered something surprising. The fear that once gripped her was now morphing into resilience. Then, someone boldly stated, "But how do we make this actionable? Stories are great, but they don't change anything." The descent hung heavily, but rather than crumbling, Lily felt energy pulse through her veins. "We can change our narratives into action," she urged, igniting her voice as empowerment shaped her tone. "Let us brainstorm solutions right now." She stood straighter, her posture infusing her words with a newfound strength that startled even her. "What small steps can we take?" Collectively, their creativity sparked, and a plan began to form, a detailed strategy boiling down to tangible actions while nurturing their growing bond. In the midst of it all, Lily realized it wasn't just her guiding them. They were shaping her too. Yet, as the meeting concluded and the warm glow of shared purpose enveloped them all, one lingering thought wrapped itself around her mind: vulnerability was both a gift and a curse. In laying bare herself, she had opened a door that could lead to unforeseen consequences. Would this newfound trust withstand the tests that lay ahead? As they left the room, Lily felt a shiver of apprehension creep into her core. She had taken the first steps toward defining her leadership, but the uncertain pathway forward loomed ahead, a mix of promise and peril entwined. What awaited her and the group was a new challenge, one that threatened to disentangle the connections they had woven. A shadow cast by doubt still prowled close, and it whispered, "What if this is only the beginning of a far darker chapter?" The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of transformation for Lily and her classmates, each meeting morphing their occasional conversations about bullying into structured plans full of intent and purpose. They attended weekly sessions where stories were told and strength was shared, each voice intertwining with the others like threads in a tapestry woven from fragments of struggle. By the end of the month, the school had begun to notice a shift. The air felt lighter. Students who once walked halls with downcast eyes began to stand a little straighter. It was no longer just Lily confronting those entrenched social hierarchies. She had amassed a small following of change agents who were ready to redefine what it meant to support one another against adversity, but with every victory, a counterweight of uncertainty loomed. Jake had not relented, his derisive laughter still echoing in the shadows of their newfound camaraderie. His presence loomed, a thunderstorm that threatened to unleash chaos at any moment. Yet, within that potential turmoil, Lily discovered a reservoir of unanticipated strength, born not just from her actions, but from the voices rallying around her cause. One day, during lunch, their group met to finalize plans for their anti-bullying initiative. They were poised, ready to present to the school board for approval. "Let us lay out exactly what we want to achieve," Lily encouraged, glancing around at her friends, each a testament to the courage brewing within this movement. As they brainstormed, a timely message notification interrupted her thoughts, an invitation to appear on a local news segment discussing their campaign against bullying. The opportunity hung in the air, an electrifying jolt of potential. Yet as excitement stirred, doubt crept alongside it. What if she faltered? What if Jake sought to undermine them, or even the media twisted their words, branding them failures under the scrutiny of public perception? Later that evening, sitting in her room, Lily wrestled with those thoughts, clutching the notes for her forthcoming interview. Bravery, she realized, was not merely the absence of fear, it was the ability to act even in its presence. She had to demonstrate her newfound confidence not just for her own sake, but for those who had chosen to stand with her. That night, she prepared with fierce determination. She practiced her speaking points, her heart racing with each repetition. "Fear is a crossroads of growth," she repeated. Now it meant more than ever. It wasn't just about her journey, it was about everyone who felt unseen. The day of the interview arrived, a sun-drenched morning reflecting the clarity of purpose she felt. When she stepped in front of the camera, the spotlight seemed both overwhelming and empowering. Mouth dry, anxiety threatened to seize her, but she centered herself, remembering every shared experience that had brought her to this moment. As the questions flowed, she felt grounded. "We're all connected through our stories," she declared when asked about the importance of their campaign. "Each voice has the power to transform silence into strength. Together, we can create a culture where kindness thrives and bullying is not tolerated." The applause that followed their presentation resonated like music to her ears, but even more significant was the validation within. For the first time, she truly understood her ability to influence, to inspire, and to lead. As they exited the building, a sudden wave of recognition flooded through the crowd gathered outside. Among them stood Matt, his face alight with pride, his smile a beacon of support. "You did it, Lily. You were incredible." He squeezed her shoulder, and in that simple gesture, she felt a rush of pride swell within her. But the echo of Jake's laughter was never far behind. Days later, he struck again, comments filled with disdain circulating through the school like wildfire. "You think you can change things, don't you? Just a bunch of losers playing at being brave." Lily recognized the old fear resurfacing, but this time, the collective energy behind her felt different. She finally realized it wasn't just about her anymore, it was about a community committed to leveling the playing field, regardless of the naysayers determined to pull them back. She asked her friends to address Jake, to reinforce the values they had built together. One by one, they approached him not as individuals, but as a united front. "We're not afraid of your words," Lily stated firmly, emotions thick in her voice. "We're here to uplift, to support each other. You can mock us, but we're stronger together. Your negativity can't silence us." In that moment, something clicked within Lily. She had not only conquered her own fears but had emerged as a recognized leader. The power she held alongside her friends was palpable, morphing years of silence into an uplifting testament of resilience. The hallways began to change, infused with collaborative energy and camaraderie. Past tensions started to dissipate, replaced by mutual respect. The school board, bolstered by the community's support and growth, approved a week dedicated to their anti-bullying campaign. Lily's initiative, driven by shared narratives, emerged from her own struggle to unify voices that had long felt marginalized. In reflection, she understood the powerful balance she'd achieved. Courage, once a whispered hope, had transformed into a resonant anthem of change. As the last bell rang and students burst into the hallways with laughter, Lily knew she had not just achieved personal growth, she had laid foundational roots for a cultural shift. With a heart full of gratitude and determination, Lily stepped forward into her new reality, ready to face whatever challenges might come next, knowing she wouldn't do it alone. But this isn't just the end of Lily's story, it's also where you come in. If you found growth in Lily's journey or if you can relate to her challenge, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single one of our next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now, your support feeds the algorithm and encourages more incredible tales of personal overcoming. Comment your reactions or theories about how Lily's transformation has impacted you. And be the beacon of change. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear these powerful narratives. This is the moment to show your support and be part of this journey. Don't wait even one more second to share.